Hello, AI curious folk. Welcome back to AI Ramblings Daily, the podcast number 80. Michael Parekh, your human AI guide. Lots going on today. All Google. That's what I wanted to focus on, and that's our theme today. At I/O 2026, their big developer conference, Google spread this one core message. Google Gemini is becoming Google Search, and AI Search is becoming Google Search. Also, chatbots and AI agents are all becoming Google Search. And there is a lot to unpack here. They announced a whole host of things headed by CEO Sundar Pichai. And I want to break it up into three items to talk about, give you some individual takes on each one of them, and give you my overall take. First, the core summary is about all the things that they announced today. And there's a dozen or so items. There'll be a lot of links in the show notes, both the external ones in terms of people summarizing this stuff and also my own previous takes on some of these things that I've written about. But the core thing here is at I/O 2026, Google drew up a product roadmap that covers almost everything offered by the competitors with either good enough or better versions of each. Then they integrated them with the core Google apps and services used by literally billions of people daily, from Google Search to Gmail to Docs to YouTube and so many more. All of it is leveraged by the immense vertical stack of Google's own infrastructure, which they use for their own properties and for Google Cloud, which is their cloud service that competes with Microsoft Azure and the bigger Amazon AWS. And that is a very unique differentiator relative to most of its peers, these data centers. And Google is also continuing to invest as aggressively as everybody else, at least $190 billion this year, very close to Amazon's $200 billion, very close to Microsoft's $160 billion, very close to Meta's $145 billion, and very close to 100 plus billion or whatever one can muster between Tesla as its public company, or $1.5 trillion piggy bank, and the soon to come $1.75 trillion piggy bank number two in SpaceX XAI. So anyway, a lot of money up for grabs, but Google has the assets, the actual distribution, and that's what I want to go over in more detail in the broader part of this take today. So Google remains very competitive on everything, and their strategy after 3 years of their code red, a month after ChatGPT was announced on November of 2022, Google has come a long way in the last 3 years to the point where they're not just neck and neck, but about to speed away. And I'll come back to that in a few minutes. Google also overhauled their pricing plans. So they, like the industry, are also offering higher a la carte pricing, beyond the $20 tiers. They announced a new $100 tier. They have a $250 tier, which they lowered to $200. That brings them pari passu to OpenAI and Anthropic and Perplexity's computer offering and whatever else other people are going to offer. But more importantly, they're very aggressively taking some of their latest models, the medium versions or the lighter versions of them, and utterly blending them into Gemini AI that is part of the AI mode or AI overview mode of Google Search. So in other words, over 3 billion people who use Google Search daily are going to have access for free the latest Gemini models and Gemini agents either today or very soon in the next few weeks. So the pricing flexibility that the company has is broad like them, but also much deeper because of their distribution to, like I said, billions of Google users of Google Search and other services. So that's my take number two that I wanted to highlight. The third one, and here's Sundar Pichai threw out some numbers, and he said, and this is in the context of the number of tokens the company is generating per month. And this is tokens, remember, are just when the GPUs do their work, they basically break up every word into 3 or 4 character words that the computer recognizes, and that's what they do all this immense amount of matrix math on the probabilities on how these large and small language models work. Sundar Pichai noted that Google is now processing 3.2 quadrillion tokens per month, which is a measure of all of their AI workload across everything, across all the products that they have. And that compares to about 480 trillion tokens per month about a year ago. So that's a 7x number. And 2 years ago, that was 9.7 trillion tokens. And this also obviously echoes the whole token maxing thing that's going on in Silicon Valley. Meta's talking about it. Everyone has leaderboards in their companies for their employees and so on. This is kind of adjacent point, but the metric itself is just an indication of how AI is dramatically changing as it transitions from chatbots, where it's just doing search, to AI agentic work. The token inference compute basically explodes, and that's what these numbers are underlining. And analysts like me will come up with ways to slice and dice these tokens. If we can get apples to apples tokens from Google versus the other peers, we'll figure out ways to create metrics, adjusted metrics, to compare all of these companies to each other. But so far, Google is the only one that's given us these magnitude of token numbers. So I wanted to just highlight them as my third take today. And we will have more on this on later Substack posts and podcasts. So my overall take here is that Google is executing wide and deep on both their Gemini AI and their TPU infrastructure opportunities. And they've, again, drawn a roadmap that is at least equal or pari passu to all of their peers. And then they have all of the Google advantages around that. And whether some of these products, and there's a number of them, are available today or in the next few weeks or later this year, the point is that if once we look at this going back from IO 2026 to, let's say, IO 2027, a year from now, it will become much clearer that Google has widened the distance between itself and most of its peers. And so that is a very differentiated kind of a positioning. And it's very different than when people thought Google was going to lose to people like OpenAI and so on just 3 years ago, that their business would be impacted. If anything, all of these AI opportunities really expand the market and opportunities to sell everything from ad services to a whole host of subscriptions. And it's probably one of those reasons that investors are starting to figure this out. Its market cap is now, 4.5 to approaching 5 trillion, which is close to NVIDIA, which is the leading market cap Mag 7 right now. And it's likely one of the reasons that Berkshire Hathaway, under the new Warren Buffett successor, Greg Abel, is also adding Google shares. Again, none of this is stock recommendations, but it's just underlining that investors are recognizing some of the differentiation, even though there are a lot of big, broad questions around AI and whether consumers like it or don't like it. I've written and talked a lot about that. And one point on that, as an overall take addition, is that if there's anyone who can make some of these AI services more liked by consumers and more widely used by consumers, it's probably Google. And just like they did with search, because people already know search, they're going to use AI from Google like they do search. And it's a relatively straightforward habit. Like I said, there's over 3 billion people who search on Google every day, and that's a great number to start from. It's over 3x what ChatGPT has, at about 900 million a week. And so it is a differentiation that I think is worth keeping in mind. And there's not much from Google's execution that would retard that lead. So we shall see. Let's now talk about some of the Gadget AI side of the discussion today. And here I want to talk a little bit about Google Gemini app, their standalone app, both available on Android and on iOS. And they announced a redesign with a brand new UI UX, a lot more features, a new look and feel called Neural Expressive. They also have, in a separate Android presentation, they announced an AI cursor designed by DeepMind, which is their big AI division. And I bring up all this. I'll have lots of links in the show notes so you can look at examples and what the stuff does. But this, from a user interface point of view, again, distinguishes Google relative to peers, especially the AI cursor innovations. Obviously, they can be emulated or copied by the competitors, but most competitors don't have access to the operating system level or the Chrome browser access that Google has. So almost everything I've just described, all the Google AI models, Gemini, are going to be bundled into Chrome, which is over 70% or more of the world's browsers that are being used. And so these will literally become AI browsers with these new look and feel, and it'll be bundled in the app. So that's a thing to keep in mind. And that takes us to our couple of questions for the day. And since we're in a Google theme, I'll keep some of the questions to that. One question I had was, what's the one IO 2026 product I'm most looking forward to trying? And for me, it's Google Gemini Spark, which is their version of Claude Code from Anthropic or Codex from OpenAI. And it's the agentic, it's their personal AI product that will be released to Ultra subscribers as early as next week, they said, in beta. So I'm looking forward to trying that. It has a few bells and whistles that are different. Again, a lot more technical differences in detail in the notes from the links that I'll provide. But if Spark delivers even half of what some of the demos promised, it's a pretty interesting competing product, especially because it just automatically integrates with all the Google apps that most of us, especially people like me, already use, like Google Docs and Gmail. So all the data is already there. Right now, when I use the other competing products, I have to go out of my way to add extra steps to integrate it with integrate the results of the Claude code, co-work, etc., into productivity apps that I use, like Google Docs or let's say Microsoft Word. This will just make it all seamless. And so I'm kind of looking forward to this this business of Spark. The second product, there was the other question is there a second one? And yes, there's a product they demoed called Google Docs Live. They gave access to it to some reporters. There were some reviews of it, which I'll also link to in the notes. And because, other than Gmail and YouTube, the third most used app on Google is probably Google Docs. Google Docs Live basically gives it just a total multimodal capability where you just talk to the document. It creates stuff on the fly, and it just literally creates a lot of integrated features based on your existing documents and so on. It looks very powerful. It's early. They showed some beta versions of it to the reviewers, and there's a lot of polishing to be done, so it won't be ready for a little bit longer, but I'm looking forward to that one next. So that's my summary today on AI Ramblings Daily 80. It's all Google today. I hope you found it useful. Any thoughts, questions, comments, like, subscribes, always welcome. Also, just a highlight, today's AI Reset to Zero post 1092 is all about what regular folks why they want to slow down AI in the US. There's a lot of antipathy to AI right now, and I go through some of the reasons that's driving that. So do look out for that. And join us again tomorrow for AI 81 and AI Reset to Zero 1093. Stay tuned.